What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and this video I want to talk about a pretty interesting article about Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. And there were some quotes being thrown out around the internet. Now, they kind of came without context. They kind of came without the opposing side of it. They kind of made the whole thing a little bit more okay. But I do want to go over this article. It comes from The Gamer, and came from RGG Studio Chief Producer. So this is obviously a pretty high-up guy. And he makes the game sound very, very exciting. Not that I needed it to be more exciting, but they talk a little bit about Majima and his story, and these are all things I kind of want to go over in this video. So let's just jump into it. So they first say that back in September of 2023 is kind of when they came up with the idea. They basically wanted it to be Majima and they wanted it to be Hawaii, and then they just kind of came up with the idea that, well, what if he was just a pirate? Then they talk about how, just like the man who erased his name was between 7 and 8, they actually, and I don't know if this is like a big deal, but they do kind of confirm there will be a 9, because they say it's going to be somewhere in between the events of 8 and the next game. So they are talking about, man who erased his name, 7, 8, and then Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, 8 and 9. The plan is for this one to be a game that follows on the heels of Infinite Wealth. It's 6 months later, and it is chronologically in the universe. It is canon. Now, just stopping right there really quickly, I have said before, one reason why I really like the idea of this game is it's an unreliable narrator, and it's a guy who also has amnesia, right? So he can Majima can literally go crazy, right? It's why you can battle the Kraken. It's why you can be a legitimate pirate. Not that necessarily those things couldn't already happen in the Like a Dragon universe, but it makes it more likely, right? Because he could be embellishing some things that are happening in front of him, but he's just kind of making it up. It's why I've always kind of liked that idea. But yeah, chronologically in the universe, it is canon. I'm sure there's going to be like legit story moments that, yeah, they are going to actually fit. They talk about how this was the first and last idea, again, going back to that earlier point. Like, they knew it was going to be Majima, they knew it was going to be Hawaii, they came up with the pirate idea, and they never came up with anything else, kind of besides that one. Now, the main line that's being thrown around that I actually reacted to on Twitter, and I didn't like it, but there's actually kind of a part 2 to the line, is the seriousness of the story. Now, I still kind of have a problem with this just paragraph, but let's read it and we'll go from there. It's Majima. You can't make a serious Majima game, really. If we're trying to make a game based around him, it's got to be over the top. You can't have Majima and then try to make a really rounded emotional story. That was probably the major influence that made us pick this direction for the game. Now, let me just pause there, okay? He does say something that kind of balances this a little bit, but I will say, I don't know. I would respectfully disagree. I guess that's kind of where I would come from. I don't need to attack the guy. I don't need to boycott the franchise because it's one of my favorites. I freaking love the franchise, but I don't know if that's true. In fact, I don't think that's true. Yeah, Yakuza 0 showed it, but you also kind of just look more like deep into Majima as a character, and it's like, I guess what he is now, yeah, you can't do it, but like you could have. But another thing is, because he has amnesia, and they actually talked about this. They talk about this later in the article. He's not starting the game as the mad dog. He's not starting the game like literally insane, right? And not that he was ever literally insane. It's all an act in the first place, right? I guess spoilers for 0. So that's kind of, I guess, my response, or, kind of my comeback there. But then, and I thought about this, right? Again, because this game, he's kind of like building his memory as he goes. Yeah, he might remember why he acts crazy, like purposely. And you know what? Those are kind of emotional moments that I think you can build around. Like, and I'm telling you right now, those are what I really hope are in this game. I want callbacks to like, why is he the way that he is? Now, we kind of know that, and he kind of knows that, right? But it's been a long time, and canonically, it's been forever, right? Because yeah, you had 0, and it was not that far away of a game. It didn't release too long ago, but in terms of where it slots and all of this stuff, he's had this act for decades. He's had this act since 0, and he's had it from 1 or Kiwami 1 all the way up. So I think because of the memory loss, they have a cool opportunity to kind of build him back up and make him kind of do some like self-reflection, where again, he knows why, and I think it's an amazing reason. I freaking love it. I just love the entire, I guess, idea, but he might not remember that, right? So it's kind of time, I would imagine it's an opportunity, I should say, to kind of build that up. Now, the quote that kind of balances this at least a little is that he clarifies that even though the team focuses on making this very over the top, that it doesn't mean everything should be as over the top as we possibly can make it. Pirate Yakuza still will have that emotional and dramatic side to it, more so than players might expect from what we've seen so far. We've still made a lot of these character drama stories that are about people having serious conversations too. There is more of that in this game than you might expect from the visuals. The very start of the game, you have Majima who has amnesia, so it's not like he's starting the normal Majima. He's starting from a different point. We hope that the silliness of the idea helps draw people in, but then we also want to show people what Like a Dragon can be by telling the stories of people with strong beliefs, strong things that they feel, creeds and ways of life, and then emotional connections between these people and having these dramatic stories. So again, pausing right there, I mean, I'm not entirely sold. Like, still, this kind of rubs me a little bit the wrong way, but it's not as bad, as I initially thought, I guess. But, that quote kind of makes it sound like it's more exterior stories, like not Majima. However, then he throws in him, right? So he kind of throws in the example I was kind of talking about earlier, where that makes me feel a little bit better, because the rest of it sounds like, okay, well, there'll be side quests that are emotional, or there'll be characters like that boy, I think Noah is his name, that could be emotional, right? But, is Majima actually going to go through anything? And then, when he throws him in that, I really believe that, by the way, like, because he doesn't know that he's insane or why he puts on that act, I feel like he kind of has to go back and remember why he made the decision to throw all that stuff away to become the mad dog, right? He's got to go through that again in order to kind of claim that memory. So I think there is enormous potential. And by the way, actually, may I just throw this in right now while we're talking about it? In all of these games, one of the most emotional, if not, to be honest with you, the most I've ever felt emotion for the series is the man who erased his name at the very end when Kiryu's watching the video. Like, that was the closest I got to crying, and that was the most emotional I think I've ever been in any of these, 25 games. Obviously, it's less than that, but, so I got to give them some credit that, these are spin-offs, yeah, and not everybody might play them, but there is opportunity to do some really emotional damage, to the fan base, and they did it in the man who erased his name. So I really hope you can delve in. You can make us feel for him. You really can. Majima, I'm talking about. You can do it. So I really hope that's in this game, truthfully. And then, kind of the end of the article, they just talk about, almost one-upping themselves, that they have to try to do things that are a little bit different because fans are so good at, like, predicting where they're going to go next that they have to kind of think outside the box. But now they do say, like, kind of returning characters through NPCs, like characters on your ship and whatnot. However, they did say that in the story there might be something. So he says, I don't want to give any spoilers, but I can say that there are going to be a lot of both new characters and people you've seen before who are going to make another appearance in this game. And that's a huge, I like that. I like that that's kind of the mic drop of the interview. That's the last thing he says. I love any time that Majima and Kiryu interact in literally any way. It's a roll of the ages of these two and all that, but I don't know if that makes sense, especially with Kiryu kind of going through cancer treatment and all that stuff. So that's probably not going to work. I imagine, it's tough. I want to say it's going to be Ichiban, okay? Especially because, you're in 7, 8, and then you're leading into 9. I would not be shocked, and they've had a relationship, not the best, not the most deep, but Majima and Ichiban have met a few times, right? So, that would make sense. I think that lines up with kind of the timeline and the location of these characters. I think that actually lines up more than Kiryu. So while I would like Kiryu to appear here, I don't know. I don't know if it makes sense. He would, 6 months after the end of the game, he should still be going through cancer stuff, right? So it's like, I don't know if that makes, unless Majima goes to visit him. I mean, that could actually be quite emotional. So you know what? Maybe throw that idea out. Maybe that's something that could happen. So let me know, guys, what you think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.